Hi there, my name is Sandra and you're watching The Schwowin's Nest. Thanks so much for clicking on my video. To start this first project, I'm using one of these oval rounds that you can get from the Crafter's Square department. It is wood. I'm going to take my pencil and just draw a line for the indentation at the top of a pumpkin. And I'm also going to just kind of sketch out where I want the ridges of the body of the pumpkin to be. This is just going to give me a guide for the next step. Today I'm using a rotary tool and I have a nib on it. I'm not sure what it would be, but it works really great for carving out indentations in wood. So I'm basically engraving the lines of the pumpkin using this little tool. It does things by spinning around and it vibrates. If you've ever used a rotary tool before, you'll know what I'm talking about, but this is the effect that you're going to get. This is really nice soft wood, so it's perfect to use this tool. Now I've switched to a cutting blade and I'm going to just cut out the indentation on the top of the pumpkin. It is so easy to cut with this stuff. And because I've got some issues with my hands, you can see I'm wearing my brace there. This is a really great tool for me. I'm using a chalk paint in the color Parchment. It's sort of an off-white, not quite ivory. It has more cool tones to it. I just think that this is so much nicer than using stark white, especially because it blends in so nicely with all the fall colors. I'm using a brush that has a little bit of antiquing wax on it, and I'm just going to outline where the ridges are in the pumpkin just to bring out more of the detail. I'm also just going to go around the edges a little bit too, and that will make this look like a really nice vintage pumpkin. I grabbed this little scrap piece of wood. It's not very thick at all either. And I'm using the blade again to cut out the shape of a pumpkin stem. And yes, I could do this with my miter shears as well, but I just find that having to squeeze with my miter shears is really not good for my hands anymore. I don't have a lot of strength left because of my arthritis. So I'm just trying to use as many tools that can get the job done for me without having to exert a whole lot of pressure or pain on my hands. So I've got my crooked little stem cut and now I'm taking one of the sanding discs and I'm going to just go around the edges, smooth out any of the sharp lines, and then give it a little bit of a rounded look just to soften it up. I've switched back over to the engraving tool that I used for the pumpkin in the beginning, and I'm just kind of giving the stem a little bit more texture with some lines. For the pumpkin stem, I'm just using a diluted burnt umber paint. I'm going to go all over it. It'll look like a stain, and then I'm going to add a little bit of extra right into where all of those grooves are, just to make them pop. This cutting board or breadboard came from the thrift store. I've had it for a while in my stash, so I decided to put it to use. It was painted a lighter color down at the bottom, but I'm going to fix that later. So I'll hot glue the pumpkin down, and then I'm going to add just a little extra piece of the scrap wood from the stem, put that down just to raise up the stem a little bit higher so it's more level with the height of the pumpkin. To embellish the pumpkin, I'm going to use some of these beautiful leaves that came from a vine. I believe it was from the Dollar Tree last year. The leaves were much bigger, so I did cut them down a little bit. I'm going to glue some of those on, some acorns. I'm going to use some berry garland as the little twirly stem off of the pumpkin, and I think this is going to turn out really sweet. Using some of this white colored twine. It's about the same thickness of the jute string that you can get from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to wrap it around quite a few times and then just tie it in the front. I don't want to use too much hot glue on this project because the person who gets it may want to do something different with it down the road. Last year at Michael's, I found this really sweet pumpkin ribbon. So I made a double loop bow using the two-finger bow method. And I'm just going to hot glue that right into the center and then make sure that my tails are hanging down where I want them to hang. I also added a couple of more pieces of the twine, and this project is done. I'd like to give a quick shout out to all of my current subscribers and all my new subscribers. I really appreciate your support, and clicking that red button really helps my channel grow. If you're new to my channel and you like what you see so far, I'd love it if you could hit that red button too. So let's take a closer look at this rotary tool. It's from Hoto and it comes in this beautiful case. You get the tool itself, and it has the power button down at the bottom. It also has adjustments that you can make go faster or slower, and it is USB connected. Everything that you need is in this little kit. I love that it has a light that shines when you turn the power on, because that sometimes helps you in darker places or when you're trying to get into little nooks and crannies. The Hoto Rotary Tool comes with a bunch of different attachments, and they're all in this little case. And this case actually pops out if you want it to. There's some cutting discs, some sanding discs, there's also polishing pads, and there's some little drill attachments, which are really fun to use if you need to just drill some little textures or holes into things. So one of those little drilling tools is what I use to carve out the pumpkin, and I used one of the blades for cutting, and of course one of the little sanding discs to sand all of my pieces down. It's super easy to change out the different tools. You simply press the lock button and use the little wrench to either tighten or loosen it. Then you're good to go. One thing I like about Hoto Tools is that they charge by USB cable. This one comes with a little charging stand, and that's where the batteries connect. And then you simply plug in the USB cable at the bottom of the charging base. For these next few projects, I'm going to be using the tumbling tower blocks from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to be using some larger ones from the Dollarama store, and then some original Jenga blocks which have the numbers on them, and these are on either side. So I'm just using the little sanding disc to get rid of the numbers, and this was so easy to do. Just lay it across and then just push it gently back and forth and let this little tool do the job for you. I want to cut off one of the corners of each of the Jenga blocks and the tumbling tower blocks. I want them a little bit rounded. So what I'm doing is just taking the cutting blade and very easily being able to cut through, moving it back and forth like you see me doing. And you can see that it's already starting to cut through. Applying a little bit of extra pressure, not too much because that will break the blade. I'm just going to let this little tool do the work. I love this rotary tool. I think it's amazing, and if you don't have one, I think you need to get one. So I will try and have all the information for Hoto down in my description box. Now I've switched over to the sanding tool, and I'm just slowing it down a little bit. I had increased the speed of the rotations using the dial down at the bottom of the tool to get it cutting a little bit quicker, but I like to have a little bit more control when I'm doing the sanding. So I'm just going to round out all of these edges and make them nice and smooth. So to create all of my mini wood pumpkins, I'm using just a regular square piece for the center. I needed to make this one a little bit taller, so I added one of the little cubes from the Dollar Tree, and that's going to be my pumpkin stem. So I'm just using hot glue, and now I'm just going to attach each of these rounded pieces, and the rounded part is going to be at the top like you see me doing here. I'm just going to do 4, and it's just going to go right around that center block. I found this Jenga game at the thrift store. I also found the original Jenga or for tumbling tower blocks with larger blocks at Walmart. It was a little bit pricier, but still, being able to have all of these blocks for crafting is just awesome. And now that I have a tool that can cut it for me, I'm super excited to be using more of these blocks in my crafts. So here's all my pumpkins. I'm going to stick with some neutral colors. So I'm using the parchment for this large one. I'm going to use a color called Mushroom for the middle size, which is a little similar to the mineral color in the Waverly chalk paint, but this is just a latex paint that I had left over from painting my house. So I'm just using it up. And for the small one, I actually am going to do that one white. For the little block that will be the stem of the pumpkins, I'm using the darkest color and they'll all get one coat. For the little vines, this time I decided to use some wire that I found in my stash. I've been using the pipberry garland for most of my pumpkins and I wanted to change it up a little bit. What I'm doing now is taking my favorite pumpkin color, which is Honey Brown by Americana, and just going around all the edges of the pumpkins just to bring out a little bit more of that fall feeling. I think these pumpkins turned out absolutely adorable, and I hope you like them too. For this project, I'm using 4 of these giant wooden dice that you can get at the Dollar Tree. I believe they are part of the Crafter's Square collection. I'm going to color each of them, or paint each of them, I should say, with a different color. So this one is my favorite honey brown. I'm going to go with a eucalyptus green, I think, which is sort of like a sagey green. Then I'm going to do one in a dark brown, and the other one is going to be a gray. Using that engraving tool one more time, I'm going to cut out the letters for fall. So I've already done the F and now I'm going to do the A. So you just have to kind of practice on something else first, but look at how easily I'm able to engrave out and just show the beautiful letter. It's so easy to do, and I just kind of went through a few times over it just to smooth it out. You can make it a thicker letter if you want. I would probably have done that if I did it again. I would want the letters to be a little bit thicker. So what I'm doing now is just going to take my sanding block and just very gently sand off any of the excess wood that has popped up. And there's my first 2 letters. I'm going to go ahead and start decorating with these. I'm going to be placing them on this wooden coaster that I picked up at the thrift store. It came in a set of 3 with a little handle. Anyhow, what I decided to do was make these letters kind of look like they're falling down, more like a staircase. So I'm going to start with the brown one at the bottom, and then I'm just going to very gingerly build all the way out, but it's not going to fall over because I'm going to have something underneath it supporting it. I'm going to add some pumpkins, some acorns, some leaves, twigs and branches, and some pip berries. I'm just going to go to town making this really nice and full, making sure that you can still see the fall letters, and I think it turned out really sweet. You'll have to let me know what you think. For my last project, I'm using one of these signs from the Dollar Tree. They stand up and they have a rounded top, and then there's a galvanized metal plate in the front. What I'm doing to this is just using my saw again from Hoto to create a little bit of a pumpkin shape on the top of this. I always have pure acetone on hand, so I'm just using that on a cloth to just get rid of the saying on this sign because I want to do something different with it. I'm going to start by painting the front and the back of the wood portion at the top with some black paint. That's just going to prevent any of that color from the paper showing through. And it will give the back a nice clean finish. As you can see, I painted it with a couple of coats of my honey brown color that I really love. And now I'm using one of the words from the Dollar Tree transfer page. I'm just using Gather, and I'm just going to kind of put it a little off center, just using my ruler to press it on, and it stuck really well on the metal. To get some pumpkin shaping, I just used my pencil and drew out some of the ridges. And then I'm going to take my finger and just kind of rough it up so it doesn't look quite so lined. I want it to look a little bit more distressed. And using a pencil is perfect because you can really distress those lines easily just using your finger. I wanted this pumpkin to look really nice and full with all these little mini embellishments that I have sitting around me on my table. So I'm using some half pumpkins. I did cut some of them in half so they wouldn't stick out so much. Some of these paper sunflowers from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use some more acorns, and I find these acorns outside when I'm foraging under my oak tree. So if you're out and about in the woods or for a walk and you see pine cones and acorns and different things, take a plastic bag with you and make sure you just collect as much as you can, because all of this stuff is just so great to use in your projects. So I'm going to keep adding different embellishments. And then for the stem on the top, I'm going to cut up a little bit of a cork and use that, and then add a bow and some other little embellishments there too. And I think this turned out super cute. You'll have to let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed all of my projects today and got some inspiration to create something new for the fall season. I really love how all of my projects turned out, so I hope you do too. Hit that like button, that gets me noticed more on YouTube. If you hit the subscribe button, that helps my channel grow. And don't forget to click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future content. Let me know down in the comments if you're still looking for some more fall inspiration or if you've had enough. I'd really like to know so I can bring you the content that you're looking for. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.